The Connecticut dawn was a pale, private thing, seen only through the silent glass of my bedroom window. 3 years since my father left, and the mist still settled on the lawn with the same quiet grace. The town was a preserved specimen, only our family had cracked. My morning coffee was a bitter sacrament, a catalyst for memory. My father, William Wilson, had built his life here in Greenwich, brick by brick, client by client, until a heart attack erased him between one day and the next. Our final meal was his favorite, steak. His final words to me, over the clink of cutlery, were a bequest. "I'm leaving the future in your hands, Jen." As a senior analyst at Morgan & Brooks, my $150,000 salary became the family scaffold. My father's life insurance was a finite cushion, insufficient for my mother's curated life at the First Presbyterian Church or for Rachel's dream, a design degree at a university whose brochure she'd clutch like a prayer. "I really want to study here," she'd said. So, I wanted for her, and my savings paid her way. I had stayed for them, turning down a lucrative leap to Manhattan. Now, Rachel's pay from the boutique elegance vanished into the season's hemlines, and her credit card panics inevitably led to my doorstep. "I'll be more careful next month," was her refrain, a hollow hymn I knew by heart. Mother, for her part, preached modesty from a pew but practiced a quiet allegiance to labels, her charitable donations swelling yearly. "We have to maintain appearances," she'd sigh, as my accounts quietly bled. Then, 3 months ago, Rachel arrived with stars in her eyes and Michael Thompson on her arm, a chef with a rising star on Greenwich Avenue. "He's such a wonderful person," she breathed. Mother echoed, "A rare find." Their shared joy felt like a room I hadn't been invited to enter. The visit to my apartment soon followed. "Jen, this is the most important day of my life." The estimate for the Hyatt Regency reception, the Vera Wang gown, the prestigious chef, the numbers bloomed on the page. "Astronomical. You're the only one I can turn to," Mother said, her voice a soft, inescapable weight. With a sigh that felt like surrender, I liquidated the last of my father's legacy, $50,000 in stocks. His final tangible faith in us. I told myself he would have wanted it for her new beginning. As the wedding machinery whirred to life, my phone grew quieter, its rings reserved for budgetary queries. I clung to the belief that when the last chord faded, normality would return. On the wedding day, I woke in the dark. A critical Asian market meeting, immovable, was set for 7 a.m. in my Greenwich Avenue office. "I'll be there for the ceremony," I'd promised Rachel the night before. Her face had clouded. "You're prioritizing work over your only sister's wedding." In my navy suit, I faced the glowing monitor as the market opened. The ceremony was at 1 p.m. By 10 a.m., I should have been pulling on my heels. At 11 a.m., the screen bled red. Chinese tech stocks were in freefall. "Miss Wilson, detail your revised outlook, please." A Shanghai client's voice was calm, but the faces on the screen were not. My phone vibrated incessantly in my pocket. "Rachel," a pulse of distraction I could not afford. Millions were at stake. "We need to wait for stability," I heard myself say, choosing the stability of markets over that of my family. The meeting bled past noon, past 1 p.m., finally concluding after 2. "Excellent handling," my boss said, clapping my shoulder. "We avoided a disaster." His praise was ash in my mouth. The taxi ride was a torture of stalled traffic. My phone, when I finally dared look, was a scroll of crimson. "Where are you?" "They're starting." Unbelievable. I arrived at the Hyatt Regency after 3. The reception hall was a scene of beautiful dissolution, confetti trodden into the carpet, tables a landscape of empty glasses and stained linen. At the center, Rachel, resplendent in white, laughed with Michael. Mother held court, an expensive glass aloft. It was a perfect, finished painting. Rachel turned. The light in her eyes had hardened. "Finally, we cleared your place." Her voice was a closed door. Mother didn't look at me. To be late on such a day, she mused to the air, and a ripple of sympathetic tuts surrounded me. At my feet, a crumpled place card, "Jennifer Wilson." Someone's heel had pressed the gilded script into the carpet pile. In my designer suit, the uniform of my professional duty, I stood utterly exposed. The $50,000, my father's last gift, the wish for her happiness, it all curdled into a silent, profound mockery. I left without a word. In my car, as Greenwich's twilight draped its gilded streets, the tears came. My phone rang, Rachel's name. I silenced it, started the engine, and drove into the deepening blue. The next morning, light fell on my Greenwich Avenue apartment with a cruel clarity. 52 missed calls confirmed it was no nightmare. Rachel, mother. A constellation of unknown numbers, a galaxy of accusation. My inbox overflowed with messages not of concern, but of indictment. I had ruined it. Mother's texts fretted over what people at the church will think. I made coffee. Then, I made decisions. I printed bank statements, the $50,000 transfer, the stock sale. I scanned them, saving each PDF with cold precision. I navigated to the website of Harrison Partners, the firm my father had trusted. My hand was steady as I filled the contact form. Miss Wilson. Attorney James Harrison's voice was warm, familiar. I respected your father a great deal. He listened, then advised with measured care. A formal demand letter is the appropriate first step. It's businesslike, leaves room for talk later. That afternoon, in my office, I reviewed the letter. Its language was plain, unadorned by legal venom, yet every word was a brick in a new boundary. As I addressed the envelope, I wondered not about endings, but about foundations. What, if anything, could be built anew on such ground? At the post office, the act felt historic. On the way home, stopping for groceries, a wedding invitation peeked from my wallet, its gold foil now tarnished by irony. Back in my silent apartment, my phone lit up again. Not family this time. The real estate agent for Rachel and Michael's new home. I need to confirm a few details about the closing. I watched it ring. Then, I picked up. This is Jennifer Wilson, I said, my voice clear in the quiet room. You'll need to speak directly with the couple from now on. Please update your records accordingly. I ended the call. Outside, the Connecticut evening was settling once more over the unchanged lawns, but inside, the landscape had shifted, irrevocably. The future my father left in my hands was finally, painfully, becoming my own. The guarantor. The word surfaced in my mind like a long submerged wreck, sharp and ruinous. The wedding costs were one ledger. The guarantor contract for their pristine new apartment was another. I had signed it in a fog of familial duty, another thread stitching me into the tapestry of their lives. That evening, dusk pooling in my Greenwich Avenue apartment, I held a glass of wine I did not taste. Mother's latest text glowed on the counter. How could you be so cold? The streetlights below blinked on, each a tiny, distant verdict. My decision was calcifying into resolve. This was not about sentiment. It was, as my father had schooled me, a matter of risk assessment and asset management. Investment carries risk. Unsecured investment is folly. Near midnight, a morbid curiosity led me to Instagram. The feed was a predictable gallery of curated bliss. Rachel, radiant in Vera Wang. Michael, gazing with staged adoration. A sea of raised flutes at the Hyatt Regency. The caption read, "A perfect beginning." I powered off the phone. The silence that followed was louder. Tomorrow was Monday. The Asian markets would open. Morgan and Brooks expected clarity, not a heart in disarray. The demand letter from Harrison Partners was printed, its language a clean, surgical instrument. Before sleep, I looked at the photograph of my father on the dresser. Dad, I whispered to the unwavering smile, tell me this isn't betrayal. Tell me it's balance. The intercom's buzz was an intrusion days later. The screen showed a triptych of familiar faces, Patricia, her composure fissured, Rachel, all wounded pride, and Michael, a man caught in a crossfire he'd married into. After a silence that stretched thin, I pressed the entry release. My apartment, with its panoramic view of the Long Island Sound, had been my father's final gift. This view suits your ambition, he'd said. Now, with that expansive horizon at my back, I faced the narrow world of their expectations. Why are you doing this to us? Mother's voice was a strained melody of social horror. The talk at the church is unbearable. Rachel refused to meet my eyes, her posture a collapsed version of her wedding day grandeur. We're family. You don't send lawyers to family. Michael stood slightly apart, the anxious pragmatist. Let's discuss the accounts. My voice was flat, a briefing room tone. I laid the documents on the glass table, the stock liquidation records, the Hyatt invoice with my bank transfer, the guarantor agreement for their lease. These were personal outflows, goodwill, unsecured. As Mother drew breath for a rebuttal, I raised a hand. It was a gesture I used with junior analysts. She stopped. From my desk, I produced the document from Harrison Partners, a repayment schedule, $500 monthly, a 14% annual penalty for delinquency. I let the terms hang. Comparatively, it's generous. 500? Rachel's voice was a frayed thread. The restaurant, the cash flow isn't there yet. This was true. Greenwich Avenue devoured dreamers like Michael. The amount was calculated using your combined income statements, I said, sliding a cash flow projection toward them. It's feasible. It requires prioritization. Mother's sigh was a theater of disappointment. A notarized contract. Jennifer? It's so clinical. If this were clinical, I replied, the interest would be prime plus 8. Michael stepped forward, a shield of fragile dignity. Miss Wilson, the responsibility is mine. When the restaurant turns, demonstrate stability first. I interrupted, not unkindly. I had seen 100 business plans. Hope was not a currency I traded in. Then we can discuss accelerated repayment. I placed the agreement before them, a pen atop it. We finalize with the notary tomorrow. The room grew dense with unsaid things. The sky behind me bled through violet. Is this how it ends? Mother asked, her voice small. No, I said, the view of the sound a vast contrast to our cramped drama. It's how something else begins. The notary's office on Greenwich Avenue smelled of old paper and solemnity. The scratch of pens on the final page was the only sound. Rachel's hand trembled minutely. The instrument is executed, the notary intoned. I slid the copies into my briefcase. The first payment is due the 28th. It was all I said to them on the sidewalk. Later, at my desk, a message blinked from Rachel. Jen, I will repay you, I promise. I read it, marked it as read, and closed the thread. That night, the microwave's hum was the only requiem. I lifted my glass toward my father's picture. I think, I murmured. I chose the only path that led somewhere. The lights of Greenwich glittered, a constellation of cold, certain beauty. The peace I felt was not warm, but it was solid. Adulthood, perhaps, is the process of converting emotional debt into manageable terms. 3 years are a quiet revolution. The skyline of Greenwich Avenue shifted. Glass towers rose where brick once stood. The spire of First Presbyterian remained, a fixed point in the turning world. At Morgan & Brooks, I became the youngest partner. My name listed among influential voices in finance. On a bright spring day, placing flowers at my father's grave, I could almost feel the weight of a proud, steady hand on my shoulder. My life expanded in concentric circles. I volunteered, mentoring young women on financial sovereignty. I played tennis on weekends with David, a historian who understood that the past is a country we must, with great care, map our way out of. Rachel's life contracted into harder, truer shapes. The Italian restaurant on Greenwich Avenue closed within the year. Michael manages a pizzeria in New Haven. The $500 payments arrive. A silent, monthly punctuation to their struggle. I saw her once, examining sale tags in a store where she once bought without looking. Sis, she'd said, a word stripped of its old entitlement, leaving something bare and almost real in its place. Mother's donations to the First Presbyterian Church became modest. Her social appearances less frequent. The calls she makes to me now rarely mention money. They are, instead, halting inquiries about my day, my work, the fragile bridges of a relationship being rebuilt, plank by careful plank. The scandal of the Wilson family wedding is now parish lore, a cautionary tale exchanged over coffee. Money is the fire by which family bonds are tempered. Attorney Harrison remarked to me recently, ours were tempered. Indeed, they did not break. They were reforged into a different, more durable shape. Now, when the bank notification pings on the 28th, I feel nothing but a minor administrative satisfaction. I log it, update the balance. It is our covenant, our new family tradition. My father's clock ticks on my study wall. Time doesn't heal all wounds. I've learned. It integrates them into the architecture of the self, making you weight-bearing, capable of holding up your own sky. Outside, a spring wind shakes cherry blossoms loose over Greenwich Avenue. My desk calendar is full. Client meetings, a seminar for the mentorship program, tennis at 4. My life is my own design. At dusk, I stand by the window, a glass of my father's preferred Chardonnay in hand. I smile. A private, settled thing. Life is not the absence of storms, but the building of a harbor that can withstand them. And in the quiet of my harbor, with the lights of the town I have learned to love on my own terms stretching out below, I taste the wine, and I taste the peace. It is complex, layered with loss and hard-won freedom, and it is entirely mine.